Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where we help high-income earners as well as young up-and-comers achieve financial independence and interview guests where they can learn more about how to do both of those things.
Today, our guest is Gaddy, who built a successful financial advisory business, but never truly felt free despite his success. Then one day, he had an epiphany, almost immediately sold his company, and wrote a book to help other people do what he started doing then, which was living life on his own terms, how and where he wanted. So, Eric, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Eric. Eric, you and I met. We actually linked up on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I noticed you were coming out with a book. It's called Retire Early, What Are You Waiting For? Met you at your book signing about 3 months ago, I think it was, back then. Yep. And at that point, we talked, we had lunch, and I learned a little bit more about how you were building your business and invited you to be on our show. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Eric, tell us a little bit about your story, your background as a financial advisor, and how you moved into doing what you're doing now.
First of all, to go way back, I'm the son of a mortician.
Yeah.
And growing up, the first 18 years of my life, I was surrounded by death. And so that sort of planted the seed of where I am now. I graduated college, went on to get an economics degree, went into the financial services area, was a financial advisor for 24 years, focusing on helping people get retired. And so back about 3 years ago, I lost my sister at age 51, and I lost a business partner at age 47. And at that point, it was like an awakening. It was soon after I went to a business conference, and I was watching all these 65, 70, and 75-year-old advisors still doing the same thing every day. What I call the rinse and repeat lifestyle. You're doing the same thing every day, every week, every month, and every year. And I just woke up. I'm like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And that kind of sparked the idea behind the book. Now, when I started writing the book, I told my girlfriend that, hey, I've got a 5-year retirement plan. I'm going to retire in 5 years. So I get halfway through the book, and I go to her and I say, listen, I think it's 3 years now.
All right.
By the time I was done with the book, I'm like, I'm done. I'm selling my practice. I'm out. So,
Wow.
But what I enjoyed doing during my financial advising days was educating people. So that's what I've continued to do with writing the book and having a workbook and having an online course, is to try to educate people that this can be done. I mean, I think society pushes people to think you can't retire until you're 65.
Right.
And that's what everybody kind of gets ingrained in their brain. But, you know, what I've done is try to open people's eyes and say, well, if you have certain things in order, you can retire at any age.
Love it. I love it, Eric. Thanks for sharing that. I think one of the things that resonated with me in reading your book, and the first time we sat down and talked, was that I lost my father at age 5. I lost my best friend when he was 18. I was 19 years old, and it really made an impact on me. And I've since read studies, and I think you're right. Like when you're around death or you experience death early on in life, it makes you realize that there's a time limit, and we have to make the most of our lives. Is that what you felt?
Yeah, I mean, I knew. I mean, I think it's very easy for people to say, hey, man, life is short. But I saw that life is short. I mean, there were kids I was 8 years old helping my mom move dead bodies. And there were kids younger than me. There were kids older than me, teenagers. And so by the time I went off to college, I knew, A, life is short, and B, I know my time is running out. I mean, tomorrow is not guaranteed. So, as I've continued to live my life, that was always in the back of my brain. But it wasn't until losing 2 people close to me that got triggered and kind of pulled out of me and said, hey, I've got to start living life and not just doing the same thing every single day over and over again.
Wow. Yeah, and having your financial advisor background, in addition to that, it's a really interesting combination. What made you disenchanted with being a financial advisor? I know you shared a little bit about that. Because at one time I have an MBA in portfolio management, and I consider it the same career. I think we've experienced some similarities there as well.
I think the industry had changed from when I first got in 24 years ago, or at this point 25 years ago. And there was, even though I had my own firm, there was a level of being trapped. I couldn't take a vacation. I was the rainmaker. I couldn't, I think it had been 5 years since I had gone on any sort of week-long vacation.
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
The industry had changed. I think people had changed. It wasn't uncommon for for people to miss appointments with some regularity without even letting you know. And it was just a whole thing, a combination of things that I got disenchanted with. So combined with a kind of a new outlook on life and not being truly happy in where I was, that combination created change. And, everybody kind of looked at it and said, you're taking a huge risk. And I'm like, I am, but you're not going to really get anywhere in life if you don't take a few risks along the way.
Yeah, you can never drive a car,
right,
and avoid that risk. But if you
might as well not even
car,
get out of the bed in the morning.
Exactly.
I mean, every day is a risk.
And I mean, at that point, the biggest risk you're taking is never really getting what you want. Like when I started my business, especially with the encouragement of Chris and Pete, I probably did it 3 or 4 years earlier than I would have, because they laid out how I could make it work, and I was like, wow, this can actually happen. And then I quit my job, and started going with it. And living life on your terms is the way to go. And when you say retire, it seems like a little bit of a different definition than what a lot of society would think of retirement as, like, sitting on the beach doing nothing. Can you tell us a little bit about your philosophy of retirement?
Yeah, retirement's about freedom. And, I do totally agree that society has put this word retirement in our brain, and we start thinking kind of retire to the recliner, which if you're going to retire to the recliner, we all know what that's going to get you. And that's going to get you kind of a quick death because people tend to kind of just rot away.
That's what the studies show.
Yeah. So my definition of retiring early is to leave your corporate job, leave your career, and put yourself in a position where you can do what you want, when you want, how you want, and from where you want.
Love it.
And you still have to create income. You still have to have income coming in. You still have to, have a plan for what kind of lifestyle you're going to be living in retirement. But it's about seizing your freedom and taking control of your life. And I think too many people are on automatic pilot. They're just going through the motions every day and doing the same exact thing. And so when we talk about retiring early, we're not talking about just going home and doing nothing. We're talking about maybe going home and following that passion, maybe learning a new skill, maybe like I'm almost 50 years old and I'm learning all these things about social media that I never knew anything about blogging and online course, and, writing a book was the first time I've ever done that. So, a lot of people are they're taking off and changing their lifestyle, changing, whether they're moving to a foreign country or taking off in their RV.
Yeah, I just read last week's study came out, over 1 million Americans are living in RVs now for the first time.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not surprising.
It's wild. You talk about still needing an income, Eric, and I'm going to ask you about your dial system that you have in the book, but I got to read my favorite quote, and it's D for debt, which I'll kind of steal a little bit of your thunder there. But your quote here is from Tyler Durden in Fight Club, which Pete and I love that movie. Caleb and I were talking about it earlier. So your quote is, advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate, so we can buy shit we don't need.
Yep. I think every day we wake up to some sort of marketing message. I mean, how many times are we marketed to every day?
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah, good answer.
Driving on the road, the billboards, the radio. I mean, we are getting bombarded with it. And I think a lot of it has shifted the way people live. And I fell into that same trap early on in my career of just buying the big house and driving a nice car. And, I look back on it and I'm like, that's just a waste. Keeping up with the Joneses. If this wasn't PG-13, I would tell you what the Joneses can go do with themselves. So, but
we'll keep it to the quote.
Gary Vaynerchuk has a good saying about the Joneses where he uses what you wanted to say there.
Yeah.
So, so D in the dial system is for debt.
Yeah.
Can you share with us the rest of the system, kind of a peek into how you can systematize the process for people to look towards retirement or financial independence?
Yeah, my how-to process of how to retire early is what I created as dial into retirement or dial into early retirement. As a financial advisor, I think we got sucked in, even as the advisor talking to clients, to get people to age 65. And I think it became an age-based number. And so with the book, what I tried to communicate was if you can get your dial in order, and dial stands for debt, income, assets, and lifestyle.
Debt, income, assets, and lifestyle. Okay.
Yeah, if you can get those 4 things in order, you can retire at any age. It shouldn't be age-based. So if you've got your dial in order at age 55, you can retire at 55 or 60 or 50. And so it's about getting these things in order and stepping away from that kind of old mindset that everybody's kind of been used to.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I mean, 65 is kind of an arbitrary deadline.
Right.
And you were talking earlier about, retirement doesn't have to be an end. It can be a shift in lifestyle when doing your passion or following your why. What is your why, Eric?
That's a good question.
I stole it from Simon Sinek.
I know. That's a good question.
He talks about,
it's somehow, I could give you a real kind of professional answer, but it really revolves around my family is my why. And that's what drives me. I would say if you would have asked the 25-year-old me, my why would have been make money. I think as I got to 40, that completely changed and went to the opposite direction. And it became more, humble, wholesome, family-oriented.
And that's sustainable. I think I feel the same way. Having a family changed me. Yeah. And I mean, like just as much as losing people in your life changes you, gaining people change you and changes the reason for why you do things and do that.
Yeah, and that's part of the lifestyle too. And with what you were talking about earlier with the big house and all of that, it really is choosing your lifestyle that you want. And Chris talks about this in his book as well, which is with financial independence. It's being at a point where to live the lifestyle you want, those expenses are covered through passive income. So that's some people do love fast cars. They might be into driving it on tracks or they want the big house for a certain reason. And to them, that's important. But for other people who are just doing it for other people, if they choose a different lifestyle that they actually want and not what they think other people want for them, then it becomes a lot more possible. So what else can people look forward to when they read your book?
Well, I think with the book, the first part is the how-to part, how to get to this retiring early stage. The second part of the book is what are people doing when they retire? Because I think there's a disconnect a lot of times with, somebody can be financially ready to retire early, but they have no idea and they haven't even thought through the process of what they're going to do when they actually do retire early. Yeah. I've seen a lot of clients get to retirement, they retire on a Monday and they're like, what do I do now? They have no idea. And so the second part of the book is the lifestyle. So we've got people that are mobile lifestyles. They're out in their boat or their RV, and they've just taken off. Expats moving to foreign countries. I mean, there are estimated 1 million people living in Mexico right now, Americans. There are people moving to Costa Rica, moving to Ecuador. Then there's, people just simplifying their lives. You take a couple that their kids have gone off to college and they're sitting in that 3,500 square foot house, and studies show that you're only going to use 4 rooms of that house, your den, your kitchen, your bathroom, and your bedroom. Most of the house is wasted. So we're seeing a lot of movement towards downsizing or relocating. And so it's really about figuring out not only the financial piece, but also the lifestyle piece. And you see the opposite. You have some people that are just driven towards a certain lifestyle, but they haven't got their financials in order. So they're not really, they may be jumping and taking a huge risk, but they may not be financially ready. So that's what we want to talk about. And that's what we have talked about in the book is not only being financially ready and how to do that, but also being lifestyle ready.
Yeah, it's interesting, Eric, that in Asheville, where we're sitting today, you have a lot of people that move here for the lifestyle, but they struggle financially.
Right.
And then other people, like I have a friend, he's 70 years old. He retired 2 years ago, as did his wife. And you know what they're doing today? They're working again because they sat around. He was volunteering at the YMCA, and he said, "What am I doing?" So his life was working. He did it for 30 years. He's still working back in that industry. So I don't think he's maybe spent some time on the lifestyle piece. And my stepfather's 65 this year. He signed up for Medicare. He signed up for Social Security. I said, "What do you want to do?" He said, "I don't know." So I think it's a really important piece because if your life is working, if you've been working, with kind of that, I call it that blue collar mentality, work ethic that I was raised with. I know Caleb was raised with. I was having a drink with Caleb and his dad last week, and it's a really important piece. Like, what's your why? What do you want to do with the future of your life? What's your passion, and those things. So, I'm glad you included that in there. That really resonated with me.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are very fortunate. I mean, I've talked to a good number of people that say, I love my job and I can't imagine doing anything else. And for those people, I find that they're very lucky. They have found their passion.
It's awesome.
And it's not like they're even working. But for the vast majority of the people, it is, I'd love to be doing something different. How do I get out of this rat race?
Yeah, and the freedom, that's really what, our why with Peter Cannell and I at Cannell Capital Partners is helping people achieve financial independence, which is our why on the show as well.
Yeah.
So for those young up-and-comers that are looking at this and saying, well, I'm not ready to retire, I just want to make some more money, what are they going to get out of the book, Eric? So you got a 30-year-old, he's working, he's really starting to hit the stride in his professional career. What would you point out to them?
I think some of the things that I've tried to plant in the book, plant the seeds with folks, especially younger folks, is kind of the basis of being able to retire early in your 40s or 50s. If you're 30 right now, is, living within your means, being very frugal, thinking through the process of investing, like buying Roth IRAs or investing in low-cost index funds and things of that nature. I think there's ways to be smart about that. But, the problem is there's not a lot of education for that generation financially. It's getting better, but, a lot of these kids, as we were talking before the show, are coming out of college with some information that is college-based but not practical in the sense of financial-based. Going to the bank or, maneuvering credit cards or living within your means, having a budget. And so I think with the younger generation, it's if you want to retire early, if you want to be retired by 50, the earlier you can start and have a plan, the better off you're going to be.
I like that.
No, you have an online course that you released near the end of 2018, right?
Yes. We worked on an online course, and it is out. It is over 4 hours of videos where we walk people step by step through the process of how to retire early. We also have some bonus material where we do discuss that, and that's the workbook.
Awesome.
And so where we, with the course, we kind of bring people to a conclusion. Are you able to retire now? Or we point out, if they can't, where they need to work on their dial and what parts that maybe they can retire 2 or 3 years later.
Terrific.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, because that's perfect for both the young up-and-comers as well as the people who've been at it for a while and are looking for an exit now.
Yeah. So if they go through your course, Eric, what can they expect to learn? You said it's kind of like an endpoint. It's going to help get them there. How long is that? What are they going to learn?
They're going to start off the course. Obviously, they're going to have the desire to retire earlier. Once they get done with the course, they're going to know where they are currently, and that's a big thing because most people don't know where their numbers are, their current finances. I mean, people can give you a general idea of kind of, okay, this is my mortgage payment, and this is, how much I have left on my mortgage, but I have no idea what my interest rate is. And so what we're going to do is walk them through the process of knowing their current numbers and then make some projections based on the lifestyle they want to live in retirement. And so at the end of that course, they're going to know, hey, I'm in pretty good shape. I'm going to live a frugal lifestyle. I want to take off and I want to go live in Costa Rica, and I can pull that off right now. Or, hey, I know I've still got too much debt, and I'm going to take the next 2 or 3 years and work on that. So at the end of the course, they're going to answer their questions of, where do I need to work, or can I do it, now? Can I retire early now?
Sounds great. It sounds like it's a roadmap, and like any map, if you don't know where you are, how can you follow the map to where you want to go?
Exactly.
So I really like that. One question we always ask our guests, Eric, is if you could go back and tell your earlier self, we say maybe a 25-year-old self, some advice, what advice would you give him? I think I might know it, but
I would go back and kick myself in the ass for living this kind of lifestyle. I was trying to prove something to others and not really to myself. And it was the big house and the fancy cars and rolling up a lot of debt, and it was just unnecessary. So if I could get a hold of myself by about age 22, I would have a serious sit-down talk with it. So that would be the major change.
That's terrific. I think, our young, as we say, our young up-and-comers, our younger generation, whether you call them the millennials or even younger than that, there's not a lot of financial education out there for them. You were sharing with me that you were talking to a local college as well about potentially doing a course for that. Why would you do that? What excites you about doing that?
Well, I have a daughter who's a freshman at University of Kentucky. I have
Congratulations.
A son. Thanks. I have a son that's 17 who will be going to college in a year and a half. And I think it's important. I mean, not only for my own kids, but for other children and other parents of that age that the kids coming out of college get on a solid foundation. Even back in 1988, 1989, when I went to college, every 2 or 3 weeks I would get a credit card application. And I'm like, oh, look at this, free money. I was not educated on how to do that. How to react to, a $2,000 credit line. So I think there needs to be a lot of education out there. So that's something that we're kind of focused on maybe down the road. We've got a few other projects to work on before we can get there. But, I'd love to do a course or something like that on educating college seniors or freshmen even.
I think that's great. So Eric, touching on the dial system, on the A, assets that you mentioned, how do you see real estate fitting into that? I know you were a financial advisor. A lot of financial advisors, they talk about mutual funds, stocks, bonds, insurance. Mm-hmm. I read a piece on your blog not too long ago about having multiple streams of income. How do you see real estate or income-producing real estate specifically fit into that?
Well, I think when you look at the dial, the one piece that you have to have is income. So if you had debt or if you had very little assets or if you had a high lifestyle, these are things that you could potentially overcome and still retire early. But if you have no income whatsoever, there is no chance of you retiring early. So you've got to have an income stream.
Great
so
point.
When you start talking about somebody that's 55 years old and wants to retire early, they're too young to maybe access their retirement accounts or Social Security or a pension. So you have to find other ways, and that might be through their non-retirement brokerage accounts. It could be owner financing a business. But probably my favorite is real estate, just simply because you've got a lot of flexibility there. There's so many different types of real estate out there, whether you're investing in a storage building or a mobile home park or an apartment building or commercial buildings or duplex. There's so many different ways to generate cash flow, generate an income stream, and that tends to be stable income. So I love real estate from the standpoint of a retire early income stream.
That's a great point, and I think it's something that the high income earners that we talk to in our business, they don't know, how am I going to replace this income? I've been putting money away into my retirement accounts, and now I have to withdraw 3% or 4% or 5%. But how do I replace my income? What's that going to look like? I think it's daunting for people. So that's a great point, and I think it's important for people to realize, hey, how am I actually going to have an income?
Well, and the nice thing about real estate is that you can be an active participant. You can get out there and start moving some dirt and doing spec houses and doing these other projects, or you can sit back and let it be a passive income stream for you and be kind of hands off.
Yeah, I like to say there's a million ways to make $1 million in real estate.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we're passionate about. One thing that Grant Cardone says is if your money isn't right, it's because you don't have the right information. And so a big reason why we're doing this show is helping provide people with the information that they need to get to that point of financial independence. And it's inspiring to see what you're doing with your book and your online courses and everything, and also what you're looking to do with the colleges and universities to do the same thing. So it's kind of an awesome community that's being developed to help better people who want to better themselves and who are looking for that information. So if anyone wanted to get in contact with you, ask you any questions, order your book, take your course, how would they do that?
I can be reached at retireearly365.com. Retireearly.com was taken, and I didn't want to pay $5,000 for it. So I can also be found on Facebook at retireearly365 as well as LinkedIn.
Terrific. And we'll have a link on our website, Eric,
Yep.
and we can have a promotional site. So it'll be www.gaddy, nextlevelincome.com/retire early. So people can go there and they can see offer that you have on there and find out how to get your book.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show.
I'm glad to be here, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric.